Good morning, this is Pamela Lynn Koldhauser, anchor for the Abolition News Network, broadcasting live from the National Martyrs Mausoleum. Thanks to the new technology of magnetized light, time, and hologram imprints, we are able to interview the spirits of martyrs who died for the cause of abolishing slavery. The mausoleum superintendent, Mrs. Edith Smoth, will be assisting with the handling of our guests today. Mrs. Smoth, could you go and get our first guest, Miss Taituba? She was hanged in 1692 for witchcraft in Salem, Massachusetts. While Mrs. Smoth is locating our first guest, I would like to brief our viewers that we will be speaking with a woman who was falsely accused of witchcraft in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692. Please welcome Miss Taituba. Welcome, Miss Taituba.
You can't do that. She's dead.
Of course. So, Miss Taituba, could you tell us how you got started and what all these young girls said you did?
Hello, Miss Coldwater. Miss Sleuth.
Koldhauser.
Yes, sorry. You see, I like telling children stories in the wintertime about ghosts and spooks. I was the slave of Reverend Samuel Parris in Salem, Massachusetts. The girls liked the stories, but started showing signs of hysteria, believing that there were persons, myself and others, bewitching them. They started falling down and pretending fits, saying that there were witches pinching them and sticking pins in them.
That's funny. Kids will be kids. Could they prove that you were a witch or in the league with the devil?
No. Physicians were called in, but they couldn't find anything physically wrong with the girls. Then ministers were called in, and finally, a powerful sermon was preached on the subject of the work of the devil. Then the civil authorities were called in, and the governor of Massachusetts, William Phelps, appointed a special court to determine if we were witches. Judge Mather was the prosecuting attorney, the champion of witchcraft persecution.
I see. So why, though, were you singled out to be persecuted?
It's simple. Those accused were old, or single, and childless, or lived alone like myself. But we also had reputations for being assertive and independent of mind. That's a good thing. Several hundred of us were rounded up. I was in all these categories, like Quakers and others who were not of the standard Puritan religion. No one knew who would be accused next by those children.
So, how did the trial go? I mean, what was your defense, and were you able to call any witnesses?
Nobody witnessed anybody doing anything to anybody. We had to prove we weren't in league with the devil or talk to spirits. How? How can anybody do that?
Volumes 1 through 10 on the road to the abolition of slavery. Volumes 1 and 2. Introduction on the road to the abolition of slavery. Slavery explained in the words, writing, and songs of contemporary politicians, abolitionists, slaves, pro-slavery advocates, and others. Volume 3. Politics on the road to the abolition of slavery. The institution of slavery and how it was written into the U.S. Constitution. Volume 4. Heroes and Heroines on the road to the abolition of slavery. Liberated from the shackles of slavery, countless slaves made extraordinary contributions to society. Volume 5. Obstacles on the road to the abolition of slavery. Slavery culturally entrenched and protected by religious, political, and social obstacles. Volume 6. Martyrs on the road to the abolition of slavery. People black and white gave their lives in the fight for freedom from slavery. Volume 7. Kidnappers and Justice on the Road to the Abolition of Slavery. The law protected slavery, and the scales of justice were in favor of the slave owners. Harriet Beecher Stowe, The Evil of Slavery. Stowe reveals the people and the conditions that inspired her explosive novel about slavery and life in the South. Volume 8, The Legacy of What Slavery Left Behind. War-ravaged people struggle to rebuild their society and come to terms with the repercussion of slavery after the Civil War. Volume 9, Those Dedicated Angels on the Road to the Abolition of Slavery. Recognizing the work of 12 abolitionists whose extraordinary dedication helped to free the enslaved, these are the people who fought for a higher standard of mankind. Volume 10, coming soon, summer 2013. The Beginning of Slavery. Indentured servants and the transatlantic slave trade. Colonial plantations needed labor, more orphans, loose women, convicts, and Quakers than the Old World could send as indentured servants. So the colonists looked to Africa, and the transatlantic slave trade thrived for 450 years.